You need to switch on your microphone. Can you hear me? Well, yes, slightly better. Yes, thanks. Okay, for those participants who perhaps are here for the first time, let me remind you that we are using the Meet Echo platform for the conference. So to ask questions to the speakers, or if you just want to take the floor, if you wanted to share your thoughts or ideas, you can either write in the chat box or you can request the floor. You can request the audio cue, and when there is time, when the presentation is over, we will be able to give you the floor. The presentations, at least several first presentations, will be in Russian. Okay, I'm going back to English. During the presentation, once again, you can send your questions into the chat, and Dmitry and I, Dmitry and myself, we are the co-moderators of the session, so we'll be collecting your questions and then we will read them at the end of the presentation. I suggest that Mikhail Anisimov takes the floor now. Mikhail from ICANN. Yes, thank you very much. Wanted to welcome all the participants. My name is Mikhail Anisimov, and I'm representative of ICANN for Eastern Europe and Central Asia. My presentation today will be in Russian, and I will be speaking Russian today, but I know English, so if you want to talk to me in English, that's all right. You can either send me questions in English or you can take the floor and speak in English. I will be able to take your questions and converse with you in the English language. Just a second, I will share my screen. Today we'll be discussing a project by ICANN, which is called ITHI, Identify Technology Health Indicators. It is a special technology that measures the health or the state of the DNS system together with the technical indicators. This is the project that has been realized by ICANN together with multiple partners. ICANN acts as a coordinator, and the main objective that we pursue is to understand better the DNS system and how it works and how this distributed system functions around the world. And we also want to see the dynamics, because if you take a snapshot in time and if you have data for a particular period in time, this will not tell you much. However, if you can trace the changes over some period of time, you will get a much better idea about the evolution of the DNS system and the place and the role that it plays in various other ecosystems. This project was launched back in 2018, so it means today we have data for the last 2 years, and later I will show you some of the first findings that we have already managed to get out of this project. But I'm sure as it evolves, the project will generate more data for us. And we lost the speaker. There must be some problem with the connection. I'm going to get in touch with Mikhail. Let me just send him a message.
Meanwhile, I would like to remind that you can ask your questions verbally and also type them into the top left corner
Well,
of
this
your
is
Meet
something
icon.
typical. It's something that
And you
happens
can
all the
ask them
time
even
on an
ahead
online
of the
meeting,
event.
and we had something similar during our September conference. One of the speakers started saying something. He only had time to introduce himself, and he said, "And now I'm going to get to the gist of the problem." And then he got disconnected and could not reestablish the connection. So we are still intrigued about the content of this presentation. It wasn't nice. Mikhail, I can see that you are connected. We need your video. Yes, and a microphone too. Well, the gods of communication are not happy with me today for some reason. And I will start at the place where I left. Anyway, this is a not-for-profit project. We are implementing it for the greater good. We need to understand better, like I said, the operation of the critical elements of the internet, of the system. And okay, where do we find our data? What kind of data do we collect? There are several sources. First, there is internal data of ICANN. We get the data from our compliance department. It is one of our departments that maintains relations with registries and registrars around the world. They are collecting complaints. They are investigating some anomalies. Then we also have DAR, which is the Domain Abuse Activity Reporting project, which also provides us with data. Then we also have IMRS. IMRS is L-root servers up-to-date name. This is the ICANN managed root server, and also there is the all other root server operators from A to M, all other servers, root servers everywhere in the world. And there is another important source of information for us is our partners, and this is what is known as white box measurements. And this is this is the place for you basically, and I will invite you a bit later to join that effort. There's authoritative DNS servers that respond to queries in the zone, and also all recursive resolvers, all providers that operate recursive resolvers, access providers, and also DNS services operators or providers like Cloudflare or Google or anyone who has a publicly accessible resolver. They are all sources, or they can be sources of this very important data. And the third source of information for us is we cooperate with AppNIC, and they use the Google Ads platform. And there are other initiatives like this to do similar measurements. And then there are also several metrics that we gather. And if you are interested, I can provide you with more details towards the end of the presentation. What is it that we measure and what we have already measured? Well, because we have this system, we now understand that in the worst cases, up to 50% of all queries to root servers are queries from domain names or domain that are generated that do not exist. we had an investigation. It turns out that Google Chrome, and today Google Chrome is probably the most popular and widespread browser on the planet. In order to check whether a device can exist online, it generates an accidental query and name with an accidental random number of symbols, and it sends to the recursive resolver. And the idea is the recursive resolver doesn't have any records of this random name. It's gonna go to cache and to the root server, and a response will come back, and the browser will receive information about whether we are limited to our smaller network or we're connected to the greater internet. And since there are many browsers out there, there is this gigantic flow of queries to root servers that consists of those totally useless and unreal, really, queries, which is just a derivative of some internal function of Google Chrome. We also observe this metric changing, and actually it is an indicator of how popular the browser is. Probably like in the worst times, we had up to 50% of those queries. In the best of times, the historical low is 35%. We also see the number of recursive resolvers that lead the DNSSEC validation. You can see it in the second line. And also, thanks to this project and to this collection of information, we can see something else, which is quite curious, which is concentration of queries of recursive resolvers. There is this idea that when DHDOT is implemented, we're going to have a high concentration of queries on a small number of resolvers because of this redirection, they will all be serviced from the same location, from the same place. But now we see that in order to service 50% of all queries to domain names, only 202 resolvers out of millions that exist in the world are required. In order to service 90%, we need 2,000 resolvers. 90% of queries are serviced by 2,000 resolvers out of all the millions out there. We are not making any. And we lost the speaker again. Okay, Mikhail is going to reconnect, and after that we will give him the floor. On Friday, there will be a panel discussion about the quality of connections in the times of the coronavirus. Yeah, I think everyone will be there. I mean, because connection is everything, really. And I apologize for those technical problems. It's quite weird. Well, anyway, I'm not going to make any claims whether those numbers they are too high or too small, because this would be just my personal judgment. But it still gives you an idea of how much impact DNS resolver concentration has, and we can try to make some predictions where those numbers will be changing, and I think that we'll be able to do this on the basis of the data provided by our health project. Until now, the numbers have not been changing greatly. You can see here the historic lows and historic highs. These are the records that we have in our database, and the project also allows us to monitor for name collisions. Domains used inside corporate networks like local home or LAN somehow find a way into the greater internet, and recursive resolvers or root servers are curated to resolve the names in those zones. And this allows us to get an idea about the configurations and the settings of different networks, and to, to decide whether this is a problem that must be dealt with, or it's not that critical. Now, in terms of internal structure, like I said, our main stakeholders are root servers, authoritative servers of top-level domains, and resolvers, the recursive resolvers. So to understand, we need to understand what's happening inside the server, and also to compare how all these elements talk to each other, and who is sending, who is the receiving party, what are the preferences, what are the routes. I mean, today we're capable of seeing the big picture. So how does it work? A piece of software is uploaded onto a DNS server. You can find it on GitHub, and NLab, the Dutch provider, and there are several other teams that have been researching the software, and from different sources we have confirmation that it doesn't collect any irrelevant data. It only collects internal statistics of the DNS server. It's the statistics that is generated when the DNS server processes the queries, and the data is then generalized. It's sent to our resources where the data is aggregated, and it's again, it's presented again in a very generalized manner, and there is no correlation, there is no attribution or association with a particular company or a particular name. This is totally not our mission. That's out of the question. We are not doing this in any way. But why would companies be interested in the statistics? It is a good tool to detect anomalies. You can understand what's happening to your DNS server, or your resolver, or your authoritative, whatever it is that you are running. And also we have two participants in the program, and so they can agree between themselves to exchange this data. And when sharing the data, they can discuss it between themselves, who is seeing what. And Mikhail is disconnected yet again. It feels like there is some kind of a time limit. I don't know, Mikhail, who is your telecom operator? Maybe we can get in touch with the operator. Maybe you're only allowed a 5-minute time slot for a presentation. Mikhail, your mic is off. Your mic is off. We can't hear you. Now it's on. Yeah, now it is. Yes, yeah. Okay, great. Well, my telecom provider is one of the big Russian names, but I'm not going to name and shame. Anyway, the greatest value here is it's a project for the greater good. I insist on this. Ideologically, it is, I think, akin to RIPE Atlas. It's different in terms of its execution, but ideologically, we are collecting data from as many sources as possible in order to understand what's happening today to the domain zone, and how it develops, how it evolves. These are our main conclusions and findings and takeaways and key messages, and I ask all of you to cooperate, and I invite you to join this effort. I will be happy to take your questions now, and you can either send me an email. You can see here my address, or you can also contact Alan Duran at ICANN. Thanks. Thank you. Hello, Mikhail. Good afternoon. I went to the websites that you showed on your first page in the presentation, and the website says that, well, if you look at the table that you showed, I believe on the fourth slide, then the website, yeah, this one, the very first line, root server DGA. What's DGA? Domain name generation algorithm. These are domains that are generated automatically. It's not a real name for the website. It's something that Google Chrome does. It's an internal feature that it uses in order to understand whether the device is connected, whether it's online, or let's be patient. Mikhail will be back in no time. Yes, sure. Okay, so once again, either it's this a Google Chrome internal feature. Can you hear me, by the way? Or it is a technique that's used for DDoS attacks. For us, it makes no difference, really, but it's one of the metrics that we are recording, DGA. Do I understand it correctly that this metric is different in the table? That is to say, it's different from the data, from the values that I'm looking at right now when I'm looking at your website. Well, yes, the numbers can change. Yeah. The values in my table, they are from September this year. Because our department was preparing this presentation, this general presentation back in September. And maybe, yes, it changed in recent weeks. Well, I can explain where my question is coming from. Something that looks similar to your first line of the table. I'm looking at root server health, and it says that the data is valid for November 2020. Identify technology health indicator. It says no such domains queries seen by root service. DGA queries seen by root service. And the historic low is stated as 62.95%. Oh, this is something different. It's a different metric. No such domain. These are domains that do not exist. Like .local. There is no such domain in the root zone. So .local will also be part of this no such domain metric. But DGA, they're domains that have a very characteristic signature, like domains that are generated by, they're not domains, they are queries really, generated by Google. They have a special signature, their names from 7 to 15 characters long, and they are slightly different metrics. I understand, but I do not see the root server DGA in the table online, but I see the root server DGA in your table, and I see something. Yes, now you're looking at the data that is not available on the website. That's not shown on the first page there, just to make my presentation more interesting. And I believe I demonstrated. So, my apologies. Most of those domains that do not really exist, they are Google requests. How many root servers are involved? Root servers are different, all of them. Originally, we only used L, the IMRS for. It's the same as the L root server. IMRS, I can manage root server. But right now we are receiving data from all A to M operators. So all operators are sharing data with you. You get access to all of their data? Yes, that is the case. Thank you. Yes, sure. Any more questions? Mikhail, thank you very much. Mikhail Anisimov from ICANN. The session on monitoring the health of the DNS system. There is quite a popular picture with Minerva McGonagall from Harry Potter movies. She's pointing her finger at 3 kids and she says, why, if there is a problem around, it's always someone of you. And it's a meme that is, well, those kids, they have like labels like BGP, and DNS and something else. So our next speaker is Alexander Irin from MSKX, and he will talk about monitoring of the TLD domain system, the other troublemaker. Hello, colleagues. It's my first time sharing a presentation online. Please be patient. I don't know, my screen doesn't want to behave itself. It doesn't want to share. Another attempt. Okay, there is a window. And I hope you will be able to see my screen today. Good. So let's talk about the TLD domain names monitoring systems. We will be discussing mainly MSKX domains. We have 18 nodes in Europe, Asia, and Northern America. They are DNS nodes that are located not only at our own sites, but at other global internet centers as well. We use Active Unicast to distribute those DNS servers around the world. And we also use a lot of interactions with the operators and external providers in order to ensure maximum availability of this system. Every place where we are present, it is also connected to a local internet exchange, and it has complete connectivity in the region of presence. We have failure-proof architectures. We did our best to safeguard it against any potential problems. And of course, we are monitoring for the stability, and we are monitoring for the attacks, and we are protecting ourselves against attacks. In a couple of words, our architecture today has 5 clouds. The clouds, from the perspective of the DNS, they are seen as one server, one letter, but in fact, behind this letter, there is a lot of hardware. There are many nodes that inside the nodes, there are also backup or duplicating servers, and all of this is located in different cities. You can see here a long list of the cities, and sometimes there is a duplication. In terms of monitoring, what are our objectives? First of all, we need to control for maximum reachability, availability, and I don't think that I need to explain anything about that bullet point. The second bullet point is the response time. And this is quite interesting because you should not be controlling for your response time just from one location at one place. You need to have a distributed platform. That means that you must have a pretty well distributed platform for data analysis. We also focus on ensuring stability of the platform, and another important parameter is compliance with the SLA. Now, what are the monitoring components? For many years, and also at the MSKIX, at the Moscow Traffic Exchange, we have many years of experience, and we extended this experience to DNS health monitoring system. So we are doing connectivity monitoring. Also, we monitor for server parameters like memory, for instance, to make sure that we can anticipate problems even before they become visible outside. And like I said, we have DNS nodes, which are located in different cities, but we also have DNS clouds. One cloud consists of several nodes, and that means that we need to monitor at the level of nodes and also at the level of clouds. And since the infrastructure is quite heavy and the number of our priorities is quite big, that's why we use various analysis tools in order to correlate events and in order to generate reports so that we can, investigate incidents on the networks and get alerts in advance. And several years back, we implemented something else. We now have control to defend ourselves against attacks by monitoring a number of additional parameters. In terms of technical solutions, we have a system of internal analysis. Like I said, we are queuing our hardware around the world. It wouldn't be possible without a network of external and internal probes. That's why we use actively our own probes, and we also use RIPE Atlas probes. One of the recent developments is something that we did for ourselves. We can now compare our findings with ICANN findings. We use the MOS API so that we'll be able to see how well we ourselves are visible for ICANN. Fighting DDoS. Again, based on our experience, we decided to implement a two-tier defense system. First, there is external providers. They have thick bandwidth. They have big links, and it would be proper for us to protect ourselves on the side of external operators. So we use blockings for big volumes of data, and additionally, we have an agreement with the providers on the fine-tuned cleansing of traffic using some presets. But even this is not enough. We should be able not only to see the attacks from the outside, from an external provider, but we should be able also to see it from the perspective of an internal infrastructure. That's why we established our own detection system. It's based on FastNetMon and a statistics database, and we generate internal reports quite fast in case there is an attack, and often the DNS platform attacks against the DNS platform, they require very thorough analysis, and that's why we take additional steps based on the information that we get from this report. And currently, we are considering blocking on the basis of flow spec. Hopefully, we'll make progress there as well. In terms of SLAs here, you can see the SLAs for new GTLDs. One of the key parameters is 0-minute downtime, 100% availability. And for us, it is a critical indicator. It is an undisputed priority. The other values that you can see in the screen, you can see they do allow us some additional degrees of freedom. It's not the same as 0 minutes downtime, but in any case, we aim at exceeding the SLA requirements. Checks. In addition to monitoring, we also keep an eye on the integrity of the domain zone, because we need to know what it is that we are returning and which domain zone and whether everything is accurate there. We need to know that distribution servers are available, that they are reachable. We also need to have information on the links on the network infrastructure, the server resilience, and event correlation is something that I have already mentioned. I think, again, I don't need to give you any additional explanations. For every cloud, we also have a set of our own measurements, so it's not just the individual servers that we measure, but also several servers in the cloud. Internal testing technique. Now, when we use probes, we would send queries without recursion using UDP or TCP, and then we check the responses that we would receive to make sure that it's our DNS server who is responding. And we also look at the time that it took to deliver the response. And then we have a matrix of probes that we use to analyze the response time, I mean, whether there were any drops or losses, and we make those measurements at a frequency of 1 minute. So you understand that we're generating quite a sizable volume of measurements. And this is the report that is produced based on this statistics. This is a report for internal analysis, for internal purposes. And you can see, and this is the October report. You can see that our availability is 100%, and for every letter you can see our current availability. That's our availability, and also the response time, the RTT for the probes. Additionally, there is visualization, and on the graphs, you can see like the first value here on the graph is server availability. This is a computed number. It's based on availability of every cloud. We measure clouds individually, and you can see here the availability of letter A. And you can tell that the number of probes, it says here, the number of probes that return positive responses exceeds 90%. That's accurate responses during the monitored period of time. And you can see basically from these graphs, the quality of the infrastructure. You can see all the deviations in terms of the response times and delays. Delays, latency can be caused not even by infrastructure. It is usually caused by network parameters. So we need to find this number that will tell us how things stand in reality. And for this, we need an aggregate number from many probes. As I have already mentioned, we are comparing our data with ICANN analysis, and we collect data like the current state and the measurements. We upload all the data into ClickHouse, and we visualize using Grafana. We visualize availability, well, DNS service availability, DNS name server availability, and DNS resolution RTT. That's the Grafana dashboard that shows you all the indicators. This is the RF domain zone. You can see that we match the SLA, and we are all right. Now, when it comes to the map and the geography of our probes, and I think that in the future we'll be able to visualize our own probes using the same tool, but right now you're looking at the availability, how available our nodes are. Over here you can see IPv6 traffic as an example, because this is not just IPv4, it is also IPv6. You can see that all the probes are green, which means that we feed into this timing of less than 500 milliseconds, which is part of the SLA, and means that we meet the SLA requirements. Thank you very much. I'm done with the slides, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Please don't be shy. Please either request an audio flow or send us a question in writing. If you request the floor, you will be put first in the queue, but we will see your request immediately and we'll give you the floor. I have a question, Alexander. ClickHouse and Elastic. Why ClickHouse? If it's not a secret. Well, to tell you the truth, I was not directly involved in this choice. So probably I shouldn't be speaking on behalf of developers. Maybe I can find it out from them and get back to you with an answer. But we have several other projects where we are using ClickHouse, and we are quite comfortable with ClickHouse. We like it how this kind of information is stored in ClickHouse. I don't think it's a secret. You know that MSKX has media logistics with a lot of data. We're visualizing telesignals. We are monitoring various flows and we're visualizing those flows. And it turns out that it's quite easy and convenient to use this database because it has excellent visualization capabilities. Thank you. We have questions in the chat. Shall I read it? Yes, please. Vadim Rybalkov was asking, RIPE Atlas probes, how do you use them exactly? Well, what we wanted to do is to use the probes to analyze latency. DTL that's measured. The more you know, the more inputs we have, the more vantage points on the network we have, the better. So Atlas probes are used to measure TTL for the clouds. How did you select the probes? And I don't know, how many do you have? 1,000 or I don't know. No, I'm not ready to say because we are currently in the process of upgrading the system. So I just don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you the numbers. I need to look it up. But you know, we have software probes. You know, you can use software probes. You don't need hardware. You can install software probes. Yes, we know about that. Yeah, I too like this idea with software probes. And I think that now that you have software probes, there should be a surge in the numbers worldwide. But is there any difference in terms of data statistics? Will we be able to tell that the data is coming from a software or a hardware probe? Yes. I don't remember how it's done, but as far as I remember, you can filter. You will know what is generating the data. Is it a hardware or a software probe? Do you have anybody waiting in the line? Can you check it? No, I don't see any further questions. Not in the Telegram chat, neither. Okay, thank you very much, Alexander. Thank you, colleagues. And the presentation will be uploaded to the website. Into the presentations archive. thank you everyone who came here to ask questions and to attend the presentation. We've exhausted the agenda for this session. Our next session begins at 3:30 Amsterdam time. 3:30 Amsterdam time. In Moscow is going to be 5:30 p.m. But if you get online at say 1:15, you will be able to take part in our daily quiz. And you can be the lucky winner of the ENOG 17 t-shirt. Please make sure that you install the Kahoot app and that you have your registration number, which you can find in your email for ENOG 17. Okay, thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you back in about half an hour. Thanks.
Actually, it's about 42 minutes from today because we had finished early. Anyway, goodbye everyone, and please do not forget to rate the talks. I have sent the link into the chat. Thank you.
This quiz has 99 problems, but ain't one. Live broadcasting from the kitchen of the International Space Station. My name is Gerardo Viviers, and I will be reciting poems in Japanese during the next spring. Welcome to the second Kahoot quiz at ENOG 17. Join us for fun and learning at www.kahoot.it or use the Kahoot app on your mobile phone. Don't forget to include your registration number and your nickname so we can contact you to send you your prize. We have ENOG 17 t-shirts for all the winners. So today's quiz is sponsored by a rich elephant. And the theme is IPv6 security.
No, stop, no.
Yeah, the theme is IPv6 security, so I hope you have learned your lesson. The game pin is 4332032 that you can see on your screen. If you've never played the game, let me quickly tell you how it goes. So you're going to see a question and then 4 possible answers. Click on the answer that you think is the right one as fast as you can. The person with the fastest answer and correct will get the most points. I see we have 17 players. Shall we wait a bit more? Yes, sir. We have 19. Let's start our game.
Warning.
Go. First question. Which interface ID generation method makes it easy to track a host? Track a host. Is it privacy extensions? Is it stable semantically opaque? Is it CGA? Or is it modify EUI64? This is an easy one, guys. You should answer this really quick. Fast. Which of these 4 is the right answer? We're waiting for one more. And the right answer is modified EUI64. Try again. Next question. Let's see. First, on the charts, we have Sergey M, Symbol 149, Menno, AI281, and Cimeira. Next question is, which message can be used to trigger the use of DHCPv6 by hosts connected to a link?
And whatever.
Nah, it's not whatever. It's one of these 4. Is it NS? Is it RS? Is it RA? Or is it NA? Which one of those? If you don't know, just press randomly. Any answer is better than no answer. So is it NS, RS, RA, or NA? And you all know what those mean, right? Neighbor solicitation and neighbor advertisement, router advertisement, and router solicitation. And the right answer is the router advertisement. You can use that message to trigger a DHCPv6 connection. And we have Menno going to the top, Symbol, next AI281, Lordic, and Lex282. On to our next question. Is the routing extension header safe to use? No. All extension headers are dangerous? Yes. No security issues have been found? No, or actually, yes, especially RH0 is safe, and it depends.
10.
10? That's not an answer. Anyways,
Good luck.
just choose any random answer. You will know the right one in a second. The correct answer is actually, it depends.
Who cares?
I do. All of us care. It depends on which routing extension header you use. RH0 is unsafe, and it's been deprecated. On to our next question, but let's check the table first. Symbol 149 taking the lead. Lordic, Menno, AI, and Lex. And the next question is... Multi-select. Which attacks can be carried out using neighbor solicitation messages? So which of these 4 types of attacks can be carried out using neighbor solicitation messages? There are 2 possible good answers, so it's multi-select. Try it.
Oh, yeah!
Is it newt failure, neighbor unreachability detection, neighbor cache poisoning, the DAD DOS attack, or the bogus onlink prefix. Which of these attacks are that can be carried out using NS messages? Ow. And the two attacks are neighbor cache poisoning, the duplicate address detection DOS attack, denial of service, and those two are it. On to our next question, but let's check the tables first. Lordic at the front, Symbol going down one step. Linus, Galaxy Data, and Tasic. New players coming onto the charts. And let's move on. Next question is, will an IPv6 host always be able to reach all the IPv6 addresses in your network?
Are you sure?
Nope, I'm not sure. That's why we're having this quiz. So the answers are yes, even with a firewall. No, you need NAT66 to allow that. And no, you decide which addresses are reachable. And then yes, that is my dream.
Oh, yeah!
Yes, my dream is that all IPs can talk to every IP around the world. It seems that group is excited too. And the right answer is no. You decide which addresses are reachable. It's up to you. It's your network. On to the table. Symbol 149 at the top. Linus, Lordic, Tasic, and Menno coming back up. Next question. Is IPv4 more secure than IPv6? It's not a trick question, of course. The answer is no. Only if IPsec is enabled. Yes, and only if you use static addressing. The right answer is no, and everybody should have pressed that. IPv4 is not more secure than IPv6. It all depends on what you do. And let's see the charts. Lordic taking the lead. Symbol, Linus, Tasic, and Menno coming up. Next question. Which protocol is not an IPv6 protocol? Is it ARP? Is it MLD? Is it DHCPv6? Or is it ICMPv6? This is a hard one. So MLD is an IPv6 protocol, and it's also an IPv4 protocol. It's multicast listener discovery. But the only one that doesn't exist in IPv6 is ARP. It's gone. And the table sort of remains the same. Lordic at the front, Symbol, Linus, Tasic, and AI281. On to question number 8. In a DHCP exhaustion attack, the DHCPv6 server will... It's not impossible. It's not possible to attack a DHCPv6 server. It will empty the address pool. It will lose its temper. Or it will start assigning the same address over and over and over and over. So which of these 4 is it? Remember, if you don't know, just press a random. In a DHCP exhaustion attack, it will empty the address pool, and then the DHCP server will get exhausted. Tired. No more addresses. Next question, but first let's check the charts. Symbol at the front, Lordic, Tasic, AI, and Linus. Next question is, a multi-select. Which attacks can be carried out using neighbor advertisement messages? Is it a bogus onlink prefix? Is it a neighbor cache poisoning? Is it a NUD failure, or is it a DAD DOS attack? That's when your dad attacks your DOS. Seems my dad fell down the stairs. In any case, you have 2 options. So you have one in, what is it? I don't know the proportions anymore. Neighbor cache poisoning and NUD failure. Those were the 2 correct attacks that you could do using neighbor advertisement messages. Now you know it. And at the front, we still have Symbol 149, Lordic, Tasic, Menno, and AI281. Last question, people. This is your chance. Make or break. Which IPsec mode protects upper layer payload all the time from source to destination? Is it the secure mode? Is it the hash mode? Is it the tunnel mode? Or is it the transport mode? You choose. Which of these 4 answers are correct? So IPsec mode protects upper layer payload all the time. Which one of these modes will do that? When we talk about hash, we don't mean that hash. And the correct answers are the secure mode and the transport mode. So I think it was actually the transport mode. But let's see. Number 3, we have Tasic. Number 2, Lordic. And number 1, we have Symbol 149. Congratulations, everybody. Runners-ups are Menno and Elvis. See you tomorrow again. I hope you enjoyed the quiz. Don't forget to put your registration number so that we can reach you with your prize. We will be back again tomorrow, same time, same place.
Hello, colleagues, and welcome to the second Wednesday session. During our first session of the day, we talked about various monitoring systems within the DNS framework. And the second session of the day will be focused on something that I probably should call the internet regulation and the approaches that different states take to governing the internet. Alexander Zavnin will join us a little bit later, and towards the end of the day, Geritisek Altangerel will speak there will be two more presentations on Russia's ISPs and IPv6 transition in Mongolia, but the first speaker is Mikhail Klimaryov. You're from the Internet Protection Society, right? Okay, a couple of technical announcements. Please remember that you can still ask questions. You can either use the microphone button to the left of your name in the participants list, or you can send a question to the Q&A module, which is slightly below your nameplate at the top of the screen, or you can send a message into the chat. We are broadcasting in Russian and in English. And I think that you have already found the correct language channel. Well, I don't know, maybe some of the Russian speakers would like to improve their skills in English and they will listen to the interpretation. Otherwise, all the Russian speakers, please stay in the Russian channel. All the English speakers go to the English channel. The presentations will be uploaded to the website. Some of them are already there. And please also remember to rate the presentations. This is the request of the program committee. We do review your ratings in order to establish the agenda for subsequent events. And at this point, Mikhail Klimaryov, over to you. Yes, thank you very much, Artem. Toma, sorry. Hello, all the good people. I'm Mikhail Klimaryov from the Internet Protection Society. Probably you know VY Telecom. If you don't know me yet, which I think is kind of weird because this is me, this is how I look like, and this is me writing, texting all day long into the chat. It's great that I do not have comments enabled in my channel. Anyway, what I'm going to discuss today is not something new that did not emerge just in 2020. I had to face it already in 2019, in August last year in Moscow. Mobile internet was shut down. So I started researching, I started looking around, trying to understand what actually happened. And it turned out that 2020 provided me with maybe too many cases and too much information and material that I could study and share with you today. I'm going to share the screen. Can you see me? That is to say, can you see my slides? Please let me know if you can. Yeah, we can. Oh, this is wonderful. Internet government shut down in Belarus. Why in Belarus? Because this is probably one of the more like flagrant cases. It's been less than 90 days, well, around 90 days since the event. And we can take this shutdown as a case study for all shutdowns. Well, first of all, let me brief you on how we monitor and how we followed the shutdown in Belarus, and I will also show you how this is done in real time. And if you wish to join the monitoring team, you can do that actually. But we will start with the terminology. We need to first agree on the definitions. In fact, there are still a lot of discussions around the terminology, but you need to understand the difference between outage and a shutdown. Outage is when there is no service and we don't understand why. Most likely there was a technical accident. A shutdown is a man-made accident when the government, well, in most cases that would be government. But who else can tell the telecom operators to shut down the internet and stop making money? So an outage is usually an accident. It's an act of God, basically, but a shutdown is a planned and deliberate action of the government. We can discuss the reasons and causes of shutdowns, but that's not the point of this presentation. There are different definitions around, and probably I need to switch off the Telegram app, because it's distracting. Right. And not just me, you too. So once again, there are many, oh, it's so difficult not to see the audience and speak into the void, really. Okay, there are many different definitions of the shutdown. We can start with the definitions by Access Now. It's one of the organizations that dedicates itself to studying those phenomena around the world. There are different types of shutdowns. It's not like one size fits all, and it doesn't happen once and it's not a one-off thing. Usually, countries that at a certain point arrive at the shutdown stage, they climb a certain ladder. We start with free internet. After that, court decisions, enforce filtering. Then we realize that court decisions are not enough. They are not working very well. The operators are not compliant. They are not filtering the content. There are some things that we can't filter physically. So constant filtration and blocking comes into effect after the government has tested that capability. They decide then that big important services can also be blocked. Why not? In different countries, those big services will be something different. In India, for instance, the blocking of WhatsApp can qualify as a major service block because the Indians talk a lot on WhatsApp. So when WhatsApp is shut down, people lose communication, they lose connection, they don't know how to get in touch with each other. The next step on this ladder is temporary disconnect of the internet for some individual operators. Usually that would be mobile operators. And this is what happened in Moscow last year. And I think it was the 9th of August, it doesn't matter, when in downtown Moscow, over a limited area, the internet was disconnected. GSM was available, your regular like mobile telecommunications were available, but there was no mobile internet from any of the operators. At the next stage, the internet is disconnected without prior public announcement. There is no internet. No one understands what happened. Everybody wonders, was it an accident? Was it something else? In Russia, we can again refer to this Moscow case last year. Again, there was no public announcement. We could have expected something like this to happen, then it happened. And then the last stage, the last step, the highest most in this ladder is full internet outage over prolonged periods of time or even forever. What we observed in Belarus was somewhere in between temporary internet disruption and complete internet outage. In order to record this shutdown in Belarus, actually, we suspected that in Belarus there will be internet disruptions. We felt like something was in the air, and we were getting ready, and that's us or the non-for-profit organizations or the public organizations that fight for the freedom of internet around the world is now issued a public statement, a letter. It was a public letter that was sent to President Lukashenko and to other people that disconnection of the internet is not acceptable. However, during the elections, the internet was shut down, and we'll discuss how it happened. But what we did, we got prepared. We assembled a group of observers. They were stationed around Belarus, and they just monitored things, and they gave us information about what was happening where and how disconnections happened. We also opened a channel in the Telegram and a chat. You can see here the numbers, the number of the participants in the chat and the number of subscribers in the Telegram channel. You can also subscribe to the channel to understand what's going on in Belarus and to become a digital observer. Because this is a very specialized conference, maybe you will find this interesting. You are professionals on the field, and really, if you want to become an observer, that would be highly appreciated. Because sometimes, I mean, we need any resource that we can get. We were preparing for a this communication that would be similar to what happened in Moscow. It makes sense to disconnect mobile communications, but not the internet, really. Full shutdown of the internet, it just didn't make sense because there is elections going on. It's in the process, and the government, the state itself, relies on the functioning of IT. You need electronic workflow, you need to process the data, you need to send the data from the polling stations. And yeah, it was kind of local, and they thought that they will extinguish the internet only inside the country, but outside, or inside a certain area, but outside it would be available, but they didn't manage to do it. And we were expecting a mobile shutdown, and those 400 people in the chat that you saw there, why did we get so many people together? Not all of them installed the application on their mobile phones. We have an app for Android, not for iOS, though. There is another one, actually. But for some reason, our observers mostly used this app. And the idea was that we wanted to register the deterioration in the quality of the connection. We expected that we will first see 4G, then GSM, like Edge GSM. This is what happened in Moscow. Again, there was no data transfer, and people only had regular voice communication. And you could also text. You could also send text messages. In reality, I mean, all these things are still evolving. I mean, things are still happening in Belarus, and every weekend, every Sunday, people are still rallying. There are a lot of people on the streets every week, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, they still disconnect telecommunications. Over here, you can see the screenshots, network cell info line. And this is the network of 3G plus. And to the left is when the base station is GSM only. And the picture of what was going on at that time. They're not jammers. This is video surveillance trucks. They rode around the streets and they took pictures of the people on the streets. Maybe there is some jamming equipment in there, but in fact, the government did not need to use jammers because this is a weapon of mass destruction. All they needed was to instruct the telecom operators. It's just more cost efficient to tell the telecom operators to shut down the connection. Now, what happened? At the bottom of the slide, you can see a link to more information. But for now, to make sure that we can register a proper shutdown, that is to say, when the internet is disrupted at the order of the state, first we turn to our favorite atlas. This is one of the probes, and it showed, maybe the screenshot doesn't read very well. It's unfortunate. Anyway, around 7:30 on the 9th of August, that's 7:30 a.m. There was no connection at all. And it got back online only on the 13th of August, the night of the 13th of August. So basically Belarus was offline off the internet for a whole week. Another service that could provide us with monitoring data, this is the RIPE lab report. At the bottom again, you can see the lab's link to the source. And also there is a translation of the same article in Russian. This is the second link, but you can read it for yourselves, and I don't want to discuss what's written in there. And the issue is not that something got disconnected somewhere, but I want to explain how we managed to register this internet shutdown. In addition to RIPE NCC, there is another network lab, Kaida, and they run the IODA project. I do not remember what IODA stands for. IODA. No, I don't remember. Sorry. But in any case, there is a link there. You can go and see for yourselves. This is their dashboard, and they too registered a complete outage of the internet in Belarus. You can't argue with that. And there are other services as well. Some services, big ones especially, publish availability from different countries. Google has the transparency report. It's an excellent page on transparency, from which you can learn a lot about Google traffic, what happened to the traffic and where and at what time. Over here you can see YouTube, one of their products, and again we recorded that between the 9th to the 13th, almost 13th, the night of 13th of August, there was no YouTube. Another source of our data, and actually our digital observers used this app, Network Stellar 4, they used Network Stellar 4, and they also used an UNI probe, OONI. We did not expect a full shutdown of internet in Belarus, as I have already explained, but we thought there would be more practical disruptions, like no mobile internet and blocking of, I don't know, social media or something similar. But you can tell from this picture that there was a complete outage, a complete disconnection of the internet starting on the 9th of August. Sorry. And of course, when there was no communication, everybody noticed that. You could see that from inside Belarus, there was no communication. You can't fail to notice that people started calling each other. They started sending messages to each other. Telegram was available, by the way. I missed one slide. Probably I should go back. Let me see. Well, anyway, there is another technology. I work for clusters, and we have a different, or maybe if I don't forget it, I'll show it to you. Anyway, so when a question was addressed to the government of Belarus, so what's going on? Belarus said, the computer emergency response team, they said, it's an official authority basically, they said that Belarus is under attack. It's a DDoS attack, and the whole country is under the attack. 200 gigabit per second, 10 million per 10 million residents in gigabit per second. Sorry, 10 million residents in Belarus, 200 gigabit per second. Probably it's not anything impressive as DDoS attacks come, and then DDoS attacks. And then in their official statement, they just copy pasted a section of the wiki article. But this is lies. And Curator Labs people, they were the first to explain why this is nonsense. Over here on the slide, I'm giving you another link to the blog and also the Russian translation below. Well, actually, they explained why that was not a DDoS attack. And they said, hey guys, there is IPv4 and there is IPv6. This structure tells us that we have two big ASs through which Belarus is connected to the rest of the world. The first AS, autonomous system, is Beltelecom, which is a monopoly in Belarus. And the second autonomous system is the so-called national IX, really. It's a Center for Traffic Exchange, Internet Exchange, but it's fully under the government control. And since these two providers are under the control of the government, the fact that Belarus was shut off the global internet is kind of obvious. In Russia, that arrangement would not be possible because we have about 1,000 operators that have direct interlinks with foreign operators. We do not have a monopoly of just two operators. But if it were a DDoS attack against IPv4 networks, it would have fallen, but, or they would have fallen, but IPv6 would still be up. I have to say, actually, that in terms of IPv6 penetration, Belarus is one of the leaders. IPv6 in Belarus was fully disconnected. There was zero availability over IPv6. And my time is running out. I'll try to be fast. My main takeaway, well, it is our belief that there should be as little of the state as possible in the internet governance and management. As soon as those government people, they acquire leverages over the internet, they immediately use them. And we know this from the experience of all countries which experienced shutdowns. I remind you that this year there were shutdowns not only in Belarus, there were also shutdowns in Azerbaijan. There was an attempted shutdown in Kyrgyzstan, but it was a failed attempt. Moreover, in Africa, in Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, they also organized an outage, and there were several other. There were about 100 shutdowns. There were many shutdowns in India in this year alone. So what do we do and what do we intend to do in the future, and why did we gather all this data? Well, it's all pretty simple. After Belarus settles down, after this situation is over, we plan to sue. We plan to file complaints with local and international courts. Now, for instance, they have already international experience. We'll try to do it in Belarus as well. Over here, you can see attempts to sue governments for shutdowns this year alone, and two of them were a success. In India, it was kind of semi-successful. They won the local court in the state of Kashmir. In the second state, where there was an outage. I don't remember the name of this province, but they lost the case there. But the case now is in the Supreme Court of India, and they are going to they will try to push for amendments in the legislation so that no local outages are permitted. And the ECOWAS court, it's the African Community, Economic Community, West African States court, ruled that internet shutdowns in the Republic of Togo in 2017 was illegal. And in fact, they find people who orchestrated this shutdown. And probably the most interesting case of the year is the Indonesian court. It's not Papua New Guinea, I'm sorry, it's not the state. I meant one of the regions of Indonesia, Western Papua. The president of the nation was find. I don't want to give you the amount of the fund because I don't remember it exactly, but it was an impressive figure in dollars. And well, I think when everything goes back to normal in Belarus, we will try to do something similar, because there must have been people who took the decision to shut the internet down. It must be the, I don't know, the Minister of Telecom, the Minister of the Interior, the General Director of Bell Telecom. We are going to sue them. Hopefully there will be criminal liability for them too. A picture. This picture doesn't look nice, although again, I did my best and applied my best skills, and I wanted to ask the community, maybe you can help me out. Either send me a private message or use the chats in Telegram on measurements. I don't know, really, I want to invite people. Maybe you can send the link into the chat of the conference. Well, I can send a link with respect to Atlas and RIS measurements. So here's the idea. There is this hypothesis that before a shutdown happens, there is some preliminary action. You can't just shut it down immediately. As of this second, there must be something happening before that. Well, someone needs to talk to the operator, someone needs to call that operator to instruct the operator, or there must be a letter, an official letter sent to this operator. There must be some preliminary action, there must be some preparation. And since there is almost not a single AS with just one link, we can't possibly predict that things are about to happen. We should be able to predict an outage or a shutdown. There must be some patterns that precede the actual shutdown. The Belarus case is quite complex. It's difficult to investigate because before they actually got disconnected, they generated an enormous amount of logs in the RIS. If you look at the data for the 9th of August, the RIS hourly logs, they take several dozens of gigabytes instead of the regular 1.5 gigabyte. I may be mistaken, but well, you go and check this. But we can propose a hypothesis that something strange is happening before an outage. There is a pattern. If we could just detect it, and if we could input all this data in a neural network, maybe we will be able to send out a warning, alerting people to this, potentiality of a shutdown. But we need cooperation between countries. Azerbaijan, Armenia. I mean, when another revolution. Well, anyway. It was a joke in the bad taste. No, I'm done with the slides actually, so don't be worried about time. I'm almost done. This thing, right? Speaking about cooperation and revolutions. Yes, I guess. You can't predict the revolution. Well, actually, you could have predicted the revolution in Belarus during this election campaign. But we understand that all countries are different. In Belarus, we have enough. Do you see my screen? So in Belarus, we have enough Atlas probes that we can track, and we have about 2 dozens or 3 dozens of probes that we can use for measurements. But in Azerbaijan, where is Azerbaijan? So this is Belarus, 75 atlases online. Well, actually, half of them are online. But in Azerbaijan, we have 42 probes installed, but only 2 of them are online. And you see that they're at the borders, like they're at the entry, at the entrance to the network. So we don't have enough data to draw conclusions on. I'm sorry, we are running out of time. In Toggle, there are no, okay, never mind. Okay, I understand. Do you have any questions? Let me see. Okay, anyway, these are my contact details, and especially with respect to this last question, I would be very happy if some of you would decide to talk to me about the possible hypotheses with respect to the patterns that are prior to the actual shutdown. And I think it's an error, it's a typo in your Gmail account. Letter A is missing. Okay, when we upload the presentation, we'll fix it. Sure. But yeah, it's Gmail. Any questions or no more time? I don't know. If we do have questions, then I'm sure we'll find a couple of minutes for them. But your presentation was quite informative and exhaustive. Yeah, I can talk for hours about this. There is a lot of food for thought in what you have just shared. And the links that Michael mentioned can be found at ENOG talk chat. And since we are pressed for time, I want now to invite our next speaker. Before he begins the presentation, in the left column where you have the list of participants and the questions, you will see that now there is a poll. Alexander asked us to send a poll so you can vote during the presentation. Yeah, wonderful. Can I use some of my time, that is to say, the time slot, and make comments on the previous presentation? RIPE community was set up in order to promote the technology on the basis of IP and certain principles, such as no interference from the state. That's one of the underlying principles of the Internet Protocol. So I think that RIPE and the Secretariat of RIPE should always insist on this when communicating with the state. And speaking about state, we had wonderful presentations about RIPE stats and all of this, but in Russia, internet provider activity is highly regulated, and therefore we have certain types of information that may not be available for other countries, but we have it for Russia, and therefore we can draw some interesting conclusions. To begin, this is the simplest data, since this is the conference hosted by RIPE NCC. This is the simplest data on the number of LIRs in Russia in the last 3 years. Last year, we saw a surge. This year, there is a decline. Why? Because we ran out of addresses. A bit more statistics. We know that RIPE NCC registers ASs, and we know that about 6,000 autonomous systems are registered, and only about 5,000 of them, or slightly above 5,000, are in routing. And in order to understand what the place is of Russia is the proud holder of the third place in the number of routing ASs. Russia, according to the Russian legislation, a license is required in order to provide telecom services, and just like all other types of licenses, telecom operators are supposed to get several more of them, and also the government expects the providers to report with certain statistics. Some of them are, I mean, some of the statistics accumulated at the national level. Some are shared with international organizations. There is also this Roskomnadzor, the supervisory authority, like communications infrastructure. This information must be shared with the government even before there was the law on the sovereign internet. Some of this information is public, one way or another, and some of this information is not public. Telecommunication licensing information, this information about current licenses can be found at Roskomnadzor RKN website as links, but this information is only available for about 3 last weeks, and there is another one for 2017. And this website also has a a list and information about different government decrees. In 2010, Roskomnadzor RKN was made responsible for licensing. Before that, it was the Ministry of Telecom, not the supervisory authority. I don't know how to get this data outside of this time frame. There are Roskomnadzor actually is the federal service for supervision in telecommunications, information technology, and mass communications. So in telecom, Roskomnadzor issues 30 different licenses, including a license for postal services and mobile communications and the internet. In the internet domain, we have M2M services and also the services for data transfer. Apart from voice, well, actually, when the law on licensing was first drafted in the 1990s, there was no exception for voice. It was introduced later. We are interested in these two licenses because all internet companies, all ISPs, are supposed to get these two licenses. I've been collecting the data for the past 4 years, and we see that the number of licenses of these two types of licenses is declining. In fact, companies and different legal entities can have more than one license of each type, and according to the statistics, you can have even several licenses of the same type, but for different regions. For instance, you can have one license for all of Russia, or you can have one license for several regions, or you can have a license per region. The lines here, the curves, is the number of licenses that have something to do with internet. The yellow and the red lines are the licenses, and the green line is the number of legal entities who have the licenses. So you can see that in the last 4 years, all these numbers are falling. The internet is not developing very dynamically in Russia. There are different reasons, and we can analyze them. But in the license, you must state the area for services provision. Obviously, all of Russia, national license is the most popular one, and then in the order of preference, we have 90 licensing territories in Russia, and you can see here the order of preference or priority for the licenses: Moscow region, St. Petersburg, etc. The space launching area of Baikonur, it's not part of Russia, but you have to get a special license to provide the services in Baikonur, in the Space Mission Control Center. This is by type of legal registration. The license itself only has the taxpayers numbers in it, but you can find out more from the legal entities register. You can find out also by comparing data from different sources. Most of the companies who hold those licenses are registered in Moscow and St. Petersburg, then Moscow region, etc., etc. So this is company registrations by their location. If you analyze the data, again, you can also see the different types of legal entities. Most of them are LLCs, limited liability companies. In the second place, we have self-employed people for some reason. In the third place, we've got shareholding companies, and then we also have government companies. There are some not-for-profit organizations. And suddenly we find that there are several dozens of individuals in Russia who are not self-employed, but they hold a license as an individual, as a physical entity, which is quite a curious fact, I find. If you take a look at when these companies were founded and the companies that in the last 4 years held telecom licenses, then you will see that those companies continue emerging. There was this peak in 2002, but it's not like this is when internet came to Russia. It's just that in 2002, there was a process for re-registration of LLCs in Russia, and that's why the tax authority today doesn't have any information about what happened before 2002, but there are, of course, many companies that were established before 2002. It's just that they were re-registered in 2002. Roskomnadzor also licenses work for assembly and deassembly of infrastructure in the border territories of Russia, on the borders of Russia. This information is available, it's open data, and you can match it with the map. And this is what I did. We have this information from 2008, and the latest modification was in 2018. It feels like nobody touched anything from 2018. That is to say, there were no repairs, there were no construction happening on the Russian border since 2018. By advertising materials, recently this beautiful map was published for different networks. There is a link at the bottom, the biggest 22 companies, 22 top companies. If you compare this map with the previous slide, the border infrastructure, licenses for construction of border infrastructure, you can see that there are many companies that are connected with the single cable, with the same cable. You can see this clearly on the border with China. There is also state statistics on the amount of telecom services provided money-wise. And this information is available not only at the national level, but also by regions. It's just that all Russian regions are not made equal. Some Russian regions are bigger in terms of their economy, in terms of their population than some European states. So you should really look at Russia as a federation, as a union of different states. We have sovereign internet. You might have heard. This is new legislation that obliges the operators to share certain data with the government. There was a leak recently, which actually impressed everyone. Well, we don't know whether this data will ever be published. So here's the poll. Do we need the state collect information about the internet made available, etc., etc.? We'll see the results later. The thing is, there are problems with data. First, there is no history. Like I said, like you saw it already. You see that we have varying statistics for licenses for different time periods. Data is dirty. Especially when companies change names, it's very difficult to trace them back to the original company. And then with the slow and sovereign internet, if you start comparing data on licenses and everything else with the data that is provided by the RIPE database, there will be very little match, even if you, use dirty tricks to align this data. It is very difficult. The data is not comparable. RIPE, with its beautiful interfaces, they have excellent data and theory, but it's not comparable directly with the data that comes from the Russian authorities. The data doesn't match. Okay, I'm done. If you have any questions, if you want to find out more what the government is doing and what we are doing in turn. We have the results of the poll. Do we need the state collected information about internet made available easily with history and UI? Do we need this kind of information? 58% of respondents said that yes, sure. Almost 17% believe that yes, we must know everything that the state knows. Another 16% says, no, it's better not to attract the state's attention. And 8% more say that, no, it's not interesting. Well, I think this is quite representative, but we also have questions in the queue. Please introduce yourself and state your affiliation. Hello, everyone. Sergey Misayedov, NetApp Group. I have a comment. Judging by the percentages, I think we received very few answers. I mean, like, yeah, 12 people responded. I have a comment on the correlation of data between RIPE database and government registers and other public sources. Could we dwell on this a little bit? Can you elaborate on this? Is this bad? Is this good? What are your conclusions? Well, you see, we live in Russia and people try to stay below the radar of the state. So your typical internet business, your typical ISP would register number resources in the name of one legal entity, while the hardware and the infrastructure belong to a different legal entity, and yet the third legal entity would be offering the actual services and collecting the payments. And all of these entities, well, at least for the state, are not related, and that's why we have this law on the sovereign internet demanding that owners, the holders of number resources, should report directly to the state. And then the number of licenses is greater than the number of autonomous systems. Right now, there is no need to get a license for hosting services. That's why in 2013, the number of overall licenses declined significantly, and also small and medium-sized ISPs, they have they have other companies registered sitting on the shelf, which they are not using. But if the police comes to them and seizes the company basically and puts a stop to its activities, they will be able to quickly resume the services from a different legal entity. I have another question. Publication of open data and law enforcement authorities, is there any correlation between that? Well, in 2012, we had President Medvedev. He was focused on the openness of the state. Prime Minister, not Prime Minister, but Minister Abizov. And well, there was this trend, and then it reversed. We lost it. Okay, thanks. Okay, if you have any additional questions, please get in touch. My address, my email address is on the last page of the presentation. Thank you, Alexander. Alexander, you brought us back into schedule. And our last speaker of the day is Gerrit Altan Gerel, who will present the study on IPv6 transition readiness in Mongolia. This presentation was submitted via RACI, RACI, the RIPE Initiative for Academic Cooperation. So if you know people in academia who do research of the internet, please let them know that RIPE NCC supports studies in the field. There are grants, there are invitations to attend different events hosted by RIPE NCC. And over to you.
Hello, my name is Gerrit. My topic is a study on IPv6 transition readiness in Mongolia. It's a great pleasure to present this in this event. Firstly, let me introduce myself briefly. I am third year PhD student at University University Budapest. My research interest is software-defined networking, especially deeply programmable network. Before starting my PhD, I was a teacher at Mongolian University, so I did this kind of studies in Mongolia. Here's the outline of my topic. The aim of this study is to show IPv6 transition process and readiness in Mongolia based on questionnaire from the Mongolian ISPs and organizations. Firstly, I will tell about the background of Mongolia. We have 3.5 million pupils. The number of internet users is 1.5 million. There are 41 ISPs and 4 mobile operators. There are 2 public organizations on ICT. The first one regulates policy. The second one allocates radio frequencies and special licenses. 22 ISPs and 34 companies are participated in this questionnaire. Firstly, I will show the result of questionnaire from the ISPs. The first 2 questions are about showing the motivation of transition to IPv6. 37% of ISPs have no definite plan for migrating IPv6. Most of them haven't planned any budget for the deployment process. So it shows the motivation for migrating IPv6 is not that high enough. Most of ISPs consider that the knowledge on engineers and technicals have enough knowledge to deploy IPv6. 3/4 of them expected that IPv4 address space will be run out by 2023. 1/4 expected that it will be run out in 2021. More than half of them got IPv6 address from the ENOG. In the second question, I want to know the core network can support IPv6 or not. 62% of ISPs answered that their core network can support IPv6. We don't have any plan for migrating IPv6, so the ISPs considered that they need deployment plan the government. Based on the questionnaire, I made some recommendations for ISPs. They should make IPv6 readiness assessment. That means they should check out every device whether they can support IPv6 or not. The public organizations should compile IPv6 deployment policies. Also, they should promote transition process. Then the ISP should study deployment experiences from other countries. Also, they should make plan for the deployment. Also, they should create experimental environment for testing IPv6 migration technologies. Finally, they may prepare IPv6 deployment guidelines for their customers. In the next section, I will show results of survey from the organizations. Most of the organizations used most of allocated IPv4 address. You can see it from the post pie chart. Half of them expected the IPv4 address space will be run out by 2003. Other half expected it will be run out in 2020 or 2021. The next 2 questions are about understandings on IPv6. Most of organizations have understandings on migration to IPv6. Also, most of them have knowledge on transition mechanisms such as dual stack and tunneling and so on. Also, they are waiting for deployment plan, government or their service providers. In this question, I want to know whether their intermediary devices can support IPv6 or not. Most of them answered if some parts are updated, their devices can support IPv6. It's a reasonable result to deploy IPv6 in their networks. Almost 100% of them haven't any plan for IPv6 deployment. Based on the result, I made these recommendations for organizations. They should prepare it. Firstly, they should make readiness assessment. It means they should check out every devices whether they can support IPv6 or not. Also, they should make plan for deployment. Maybe they can ask suggestions from their ISPs. Also, they should create a simulation environment for testing IPv6 migration technologies in their topologies. Here's the conclusion. Based on this small questionnaire, the main problem for migrating to IPv6 is lack of policy, motivation, and investment. The government organizations should promote the deployment process. Maybe the first step is IPv. They should create IPv6 deployment roadmap. According to this questionnaire, technical and human resource is reasonable to deploy IPv6 in Mongolia. Finally, they should study best practices from other countries. So it's the end of my slide, and thank you for your attention. If you have any remarks, comments, and questions, I would be happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your talk. It's unusual to hear Mongolia presentations, and it's not very usual to see people from universities. And I'm glad we had your information here. We have a couple of minutes left, and so Tim, can you please check the Q&A? I mean, I'm checking to just make sure to not miss. I don't see any textual or other questions here yet. And meanwhile, we can also let our other participants comment. I guess there is no internet blocking in Mongolia yet, so there's
Okay.
or IPv6 blocking. You know, the Belarus, by the way, had very interesting. They had the government mandate to implement IPv6 by all of the ISPs. If anybody knows exactly, I think it was even last year's regulation. I don't know how effective that is, but just a quick question: have you been in personal touch with any of those ISPs? I know you had to research the surveys, but have you actually had any more close communication with them? Any additional information?
As I mentioned, I was a teacher at Mongolia University, so I have know a lot of engineers from ISPs. Then I make survey question and send it through the mail, or I met some of them. In this way, I gathered these results.
Okay, thank you. Tim, any Telegram comments, perhaps? I know it's not official, but sometimes people do that. We have a Telegram group for the ENOG participants. Sometimes people discuss there.
No, not yet.
I just check in with Dr. my co-moderator, and thank you. I guess we can close this one unless anybody else is.
There is a question in Mitsako. Sergei Mesayedov
Great.
Is asking, are there any technical details about deployment of IPv6 in any of the Mongolian companies, like technically how it is, if there is a company in Mongolia that is already using IPv6, do you have the information about the process, how they arranged this transition?
To be honest, I am not a industrial person. I am an academic person, but as I know, there's one mobile operator. They use dual stack mechanism in their core network, but it was in the testing stage, as I know. Some people
like
are.
We had one speaker. Wait.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm sorry. No. I thought you were done. There's Dmitry Serbolov. I guess it'll be last question for today's session. I'll let him ask. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Dmitry. I wanted to thank you for this study. RIPE NCC, among the LIRs, which are ISPs, I think RIPE NCC should also carry out studies like this among the LIRs. Maybe we can engage partners in the academia and they can do this kind of surveys for us. Thank you. Well, thank you for this remark.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
We are closing the session for today. And our usual reminder to all of you, there is a link in the chat and also in the Telegram chat, you will find the link where you can rate these speakers and their presentations. And tomorrow, ENOG 17 will continue its work at 4 p.m. Moscow time and 2 p.m. Amsterdam time. So all of you good people, please come back tomorrow. Tomorrow there will be a presentation on manners, BGP, and universal acceptance. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. Thank you, speakers and interpreters.